Welcome back to another live session. And I'm so excited today because I have another guest that I think you will be happy to hear from. She's one of the elders' wife in our fellowship, and I'm sure she has a lot to say with regards to how to build a Bible reading routine that you can stick to, which is the title. I can see that Georgina is on now, so I'm going to bring her on the stage. Oh,
Good morning. Good evening.
good evening. I was just introducing you, talking about you, about the fact that I'm sure you've got our conversation. Some people would be able to benefit and, you know, get on with their Bible study in a way, personal Bible study routine. That's what we're talking
Mhm.
about. And something what works for them, because what works for one person is different, will be different for what works for another.
That's
So
right.
yeah. So right. Why I'm just gonna go straight on to some of the
Okay.
questions I've got because we're talking about Bible study routine, and I'm just thinking, as a person, I like routines personally. So, it's not difficult to convince me that I should have a routine for anything I do because it helps me. That's just the way I work. But then it's also good to know that generally routine can be useful to people, even people that don't like, that are not inclined that way normally to routine.
Right.
So if people can take on routine or habit, some people may say it's a kind of habit, it can be useful in developing certain skills and things. And I know that we can apply it to the reading or study of the Bible. And I like us to talk about it because personally, I know most Christians will go to fellowship, some maybe meet in house fellowship and have a kind of corporate meeting once or twice a week, which they do routinely. But i I think and I know that that may not necessarily be sufficient when it comes to the familiarity that we would have as a person with the content of the scriptures, and also which could would help in developing our personal relationship with God. So that's why on this channel I tend to encourage people to do that, and that's where these talks come in. Letting people see, um, or people that will watch see that everybody that comes on will be talking about how their way of doing it and sort of encouraging, because the way one person will go about it will be different from the way another person goes with it. I sincerely don't believe that there's one particular way that you should always do it, as long as you're committed to it, and you're doing
Mhm.
it routinely. So
Yes.
where you come in for me to ask you to share your personal, experience with your the routine that you have with reading the Bible.
Right. Oh, I do try and do it every morning.
Mhm,
It doesn't always work depending on what's happening during the day. But I
mhm,
normally the actual Bible reading is more sort of first thing in the morning.
mhm,
Uh, that has really changed a little bit to being rather than just reading, because I sometimes my brain's at the same time thinking about all the things that I need to do during the day.
mhm,
I do tend to study more. Yeah, I read the Bible along with a commentary
mhm,
on anything that I don't quite understand.
mhm,
So that is my the way I do it every morning.
mhm.
and I just find that that works quite well.
Hmm. Okay.
So
So do you have a reason for doing it in the morning, or that's just what works for you?
I tend to wake up quite early, so it's quite handy to do it then. And
Mm.
I got to the stage of reading it on a tablet as opposed to the Bible. That way, I
Mhm.
haven't got to switch the light on.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so obviously, on there, I have all the different versions of the Bible, concordances,
Mm.
other translations, interlinear, etc.
Mm.
So that it's quite handy. The only thing is you can't underline.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
It's very difficult to put little comments in the margin.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Yeah.
So, but yes, I mean the good thing about reading actually from the paper word, the book, is that you can highlight, you can
Mm.
um, put comments in the margins,
Mm-hmm.
and which can be very helpful. And also, just reading regularly, you do from the Bible, it just gets you around the Bible. You know where the books are. You even
Mm.
know what side of the page and what column on the
You
page
are
is the
absolutely
verse.
right about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that because I
I mean
have
that
carry on, carry on.
that all started when I was first a believer, reading in the morning, because I
Hmm.
used to have, I think it was called. Unfortunately, I threw them all out only about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was by Selwyn Hughes. I think that it was called Every Day with Jesus. And of
Okay.
course, there used to be at least 6 scriptures that was referring to the writing bit, the commentary bit of the title of the day.
Yeah.
And so I that really helped me to get around the Bible as far as that was concerned.
Hmm.
It helped me spiritually, and it helped me grow as far as what the Bible is and what it does for you, and the way it's such a living word.
Hmm. Mm. Mm. Okay.
it
Yeah.
it was
I,
quite funny because this evening I was thinking, oh gosh, what are you going to talk about? And then Psalm 57 popped straight into my mind, and I went
all
and
right,
looked
I'm
at it,
gonna
and I
find
thought,
it.
oh, that doesn't really say an awful lot to me, but it did say one thing:
Which is
"Be exalted, O God, above the heavens."
okay.
It's just one of the verses.
Hmm. Okay,
So
verse 5. I've seen it. Be
yes,
exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above the earth. Yeah,
yes,
indeed. That's his place above all.
that's right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
I think
just
I am a morning person as well. And I've just, with this, I think it started when I first became a believer because we were advised to let it be the first thing in the day you do so that it will not be forgotten because the moment you start doing other things you may not be able to come back to it.
that's
And
right.
so and I think it's also helped because it fits into my personality as an early riser so that I can do it and get it out of the way before before I start engaging myself with other things in the day. So I know
Yes,
it's there. Not so much of religiously, but because it would, that the habit or the routine is helping you to have a time that you're spending learning from the feet of the Lord. And because I always did it, in the mornings, I like the fact that I would not be disturbed, and nothing else will
Mm,
come away. Because I imagine that some people may find that their lifestyle, from their lifestyle, it may be easier for them to do it at night, in the evening, or
yeah,
during the day. So I don't think it's it's as if it's a must that it should be in the morning. I think whatever it is that would fit into somebody's lifestyle and they will keep at it, that would be the best time. But it's interesting that most people I know do it in the morning, though. People do it in the morning.
actually, since you asked me to do this, I have started trying to read it at night. But
Mhm.
I get up in the morning and think, what did I read?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's as if my my mind is more open to the word
Mm,
as I
mm,
read it in the mornings. At
mm,
night,
mm,
it's very sleepy.
exactly, exactly.
So
And the same thing now, mentioning sleepy, I'm just linking it to bed most of the time, except I want to read maybe a book or so. I tend not to read my Bible in the bed just because
mm,
I don't want to fall asleep. And
yes,
and I like the position. I'm doing it from where I'm doing this now, where I do my work, where I'm sitting in a chair. It doesn't
yeah,
mean I don't sleep off sometimes, if it's too early, but at least most times, because I'm in that mindset that of work, and I'm
yes.
more alert.
So are you saying you sit in a chair at a desk or table as
Yeah,
opposed to just an armchair?
yeah. No, I sit at the desk, and the Bible is
Yeah,
on the table,
mm,
and I'm reading from there.
that's
And
right.
it's actually been, I think, since I was in uni, that's the way I've always done it. Since I was in uni, I stopped the idea of reading in bed when I was in uni because of falling asleep. So I used to take my Bible either to the library or to the reading room and be sat, and sort of it has been my mode, the location in wherever I'm living will be where I do the work. So to an
Yes,
extent, it feels like studying to me.
right. Yeah,
Yeah. So
and also
unfortunately,
you can
carry on.
you've got pen and paper there. You can have it whatever. You've got to hand anything else you need at the same time,
Yes.
like a
Ah,
commentary,
that's true.
etc.,
That's
or a
true.
notepad.
Yes. Yes. I must say though that because you mentioned commentary, in recent times I've not been using the physical commentaries. I've been using more of online version like Bible Hub and all the commentaries. So when I'm reading, I'm sitting in front of the computer, but the Bible is what I read. I read the physical
Yeah,
Bible, and when I need to refer to something, I'll go and then search it or look for something out for clarification, and then go and search it. And it's interesting though that I write in my Bible, so I don't see how I can be reading it on tablet.
oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So I've not
Eh,
graduated onto that.
mm. Now I do tend to have. I have my favourite Bible. I have my Bible I study with.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the writing's a bit smaller on that. And then I have a Bible that is sitting by my bed, but I very seldom use that one
Mm, mm,
because the pages are so thin and artificial light. You see the page afterwards before you turn the
mm,
page, and it's
mm,
not very good.
mm, mm, mm.
So,
Yeah, it's true. I do have one that I prefer as well. And just like you, I'm beginning to find it small, the print small. So,
Yes.
so I'm a bit reluctant to transition onto something else because I've got
Mm,
so much in that Bible. When you were saying that the advantage of reading physical Bible is that you think and you even remember what side of the page
that's right.
it is, and I feel that way sometimes.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I know where it is. It's about around this lower right down a bit in the Bible. Yeah.
I always remember a preacher once saying, right, we're going to talk from Psalms. He said, right, it's the middle of the book. Open the
Hmm.
middle of the book. And if it was another book, um, another book or whatever, he'd just say, right, go to Psalms and then go further forward, and then
Hmm.
you'll get to Isaiah and Jeremiah and
Hmm.
Ezekiel,
Hmm.
all those. And
Hmm.
it was just it's just things you remember
Mm,
from
mm,
the beginning of your walk with the Lord that
mm,
is good.
mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
even when it like I have my one of my Bibles I use a lot is the one I take to church.
Hmm.
And I mean, that is such a grubby old book now, but it's
Mm,
got so many markings in it. And although that is a New King James, I know where everything is, what side of the page, as opposed to
mm, mm,
my Bible I prefer.
mm,
So,
mm, mm.
it's just, you just get to, well, it's almost like,
Yeah.
well, you've got God in your pocket sort of thing. Not quite,
Mm,
in
mm,
control of him, but he's there, not only in you, but he's there
mhm,
in the written word.
mm, 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 mm. Okay. So, do you which concordance do you use mostly? You find yourself using mostly?
Mostly I use the James and Fawcett concordance because that's on
Mhm.
my Bible app that I've got.
Okay.
But I also, on my study Bible, most of the commentary parts of that, Warren Worsby,
Okay.
and he is, I suppose, more application,
Okay.
um, where which is, I suppose, where I tend to study from an application point of view rather than a, would you call it, theological point
Mm,
of
mm,
view.
mm,
Although yes, I have nothing wrong. Don't find anything wrong with any part of learning, but that's where I remember, and I find it's just, it just speaks more.
mm,
I
mm.
mean, I used to find it quite difficult to understand Daniel,
Okay.
and one holiday I went on, I took Warren Worsby's book on Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have the scripture in it, and if you're sitting on a balcony somewhere and on holiday, you think, oh dear, I haven't got my Bible with me. To actually read the word while you're going through a commentary is better.
Mm, mm, mm.
But it
Um,
did help me understand Daniel.
yeah, yeah, I know. Do you know, this is interesting though. I have two things I want to say about commentaries. And the first one, you know, Arnold, Arnold
Arnold, oh
Fruitvale.
gosh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So we bought his commentary on Genesis,
right,
and I was very happy. I said, yes, I'm going to really dive into Genesis. This was years ago. And I started, using that commentary. But very quickly, I realized that he was using scriptures to explain scriptures. And
yes,
somehow I just got the understanding that if you start reading the scriptures and you keep at it, of course, the author, we as Christians, we have the Holy Spirit is the author of these words. Illumination would come. And there are things that you may have read past and it maybe doesn't make sense to you, because certainly I don't think there's anybody on the face of this earth that would say they understand everything completely. So as you're reading, there will be some things that you don't really get. But sometimes as you're reading through, you may then realize that, oh, that's what they were talking about in
Yeah.
earlier. So I got that understanding from him, from
Mm.
reading commentary on Genesis, and that has sort of encouraged me to it sort of encouraged me to go for the scriptures itself. So it's only after I have struggled a bit that I may then say, this is what it has made me to become. And I say, oh, what does somebody else say? What does somebody else think about it? Or I'm reading it and it's completely not, it's making no sense at all to me. Why are they talking about it? What's happening here? Then I'll say, okay, let me go and refer to let me go and find what somebody else said or says about it. And I realized that it has sort of developed me to be confident to go for the scriptures, you know.
Yes.
And I was, when I realized, I was so grateful that I came across that through reading, or I had that understanding through reading his commentary on Genesis.
Mm.
So with that, it also encourages me to tell people that just do it, just keep at it. Don't, it's not an exam. Nobody is coming to, you're not sitting.
Thank
Just,
goodness.
yes, there are things you won't understand. Leave it if you don't understand. Or maybe ask somebody or ask, or it doesn't make sense, you leave it. It may come later that you have
That's right.
understanding of it. So,
And I do find that often if I'm in a Bible study and the whoever's leading it will say something and I'm thinking, I'm not sure about that. I don't immediately ask questions. I'll just go away and study it myself
hmm,
and
hmm,
from the word. And, you know, well, you've got people like Arnold. I mean, I was at a Bible, I've been going through the minor prophets,
mhm.
and we were in Habakkuk, and it was like, I didn't, I do not like the genealogies to read them.
I know.
We do all skip the
Hmm.
genealogies,
Hmm.
but I couldn't believe I was reading names and they were in the genealogy.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, we all know Ruth, Boaz, and etc. are
Hmm.
there, but it's sort of like, oh, they're in it as well.
Hmm.
I've in the last few weeks, I've come to appreciate the genealogies.
hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
I get you. And talking about genealogy, I do have, I think, one video, and I was hoping to make another video that I have on this channel on genealogies. And because sometimes you have them in different places in the scriptures. So I've got a friend invited me to a Bible study group on WhatsApp, and we do that we're just going through the Bible one chapter a day, and
yes,
which means that you can't skip your genealogy. So people's feelings came up on genealogy, and and there was, I said, well, I don't mind reading it these days, because I just know
yeah,
that, well, if nothing else, I'll learn some new names from there.
that's right.
And
Yes,
there are times that they just some things just pop up, you know and particularly the one we did in Chronicles, because it was sort of telling the people their roots. So you find some highlights where, like, the Akan, that took the Akos thing, he came up in that genealogy, and some key things that happened came up, so that the people may know that, well, these things happen. Because don't forget that the time of that writing, it wasn't. nobody, you won't have households with Bibles
No.
in that time. So they just read it to them, you know, just
Yes.
once they when they go to the temple or tabernacle, no, not temple, tabernacle, they read it to them. So it was not something that you could just willingly say, "Oh, this morning I'm waking up, I'm going to read my Bible." So we are very fortunate in a
Oh, we
sense.
are.
So for people listening or that will be watching this, just know that it's, we've got that privilege to really see how God related with people in time past recorded in this, and so let's make use of that, you know and the
Yes,
fact that it's in a different location, context, and so many things makes it a challenge for us to understand sometimes, and to have
that's right. Yes,
accurate interpretation of it, but keeping at it, like Georgina is saying, talking about how she's she goes about it, it's to encourage us. And I'm wondering, I know we've got somebody watching. If they have any questions, they can type in the chat. If not, we just carry on having a conversation, because I
yeah,
know people will watch this after on YouTube.
yes.
Yeah.
So
So, um, do you have like maybe any kind of tips that you may want to share with people? Just leave a word with regards to encouraging for maybe somebody that is new, or somebody that doesn't routinely read the Bible. What kind of encouragement can you give to them?
I think it's always quite good to get a something like an everyday reading system.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not used to reading the Bible,
Mm,
uh, just simply because it'll give them some understanding of what they're reading.
mm,
And doing a daily reading, you've got the I know on my Bible app, I've got different 60-day readings and etc., New Testament, and on
mm,
different subjects and everything. And it does help you to keep focused on
mm,
what you're reading.
mhm,
The only trouble I find with some of these, like you've got in the backs of Bibles often a reading plan, and it's normally quite a lot of reading. Whereas I, I haven't looked at one of those for years, but it
mhm,
used my first Bible. It had Old Testament in the morning, New Testament at night.
mhm,
Well, I think I did it for about a month and then went on to other Bible readings.
mhm,
And also, I just feel that a new Christian, a good place to start is normally in the Psalms and in the New Testament. And
mhm,
once they get to Matthew 5 to 7, I mean, it's fantastic.
mm, mm,
You know,
mm,
it's telling them and showing them how we should be living,
mhm,
etc.
mhm,
So,
mm,
and also, obviously, it's got um, what we call the Lord's Prayer there, where if you were to just study the Lord's Prayer, it,
mhm,
there's a lot more to it than just the words of what everyone would just normally read out or
mm,
say.
mm, mm,
So,
mm.
and obviously, there's the old good one of Psalm 23.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But to have a reading plan does help, because
Yes.
otherwise you just don't know where to start.
Where to start? Yeah.
So a lot of people just start at Genesis,
Mhm,
and and then by the time they get into Exodus and Deuteronomy, Leviticus, it's sort of it starts to get harder. So
mm,
it's good to tally up with the New Testament and Old Testament, because you often find things in the Old Testament are repeated in the New Testament as well.
mm, mm. That's true.
So do you actually have a favourite book? other than the Bible as a whole?
That's an interesting question. Now, interesting in the sense that I don't think I do. Actually, I think I prefer reading the Old Testament these days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because find that if I'm reading particularly the epistles, I really need to concentrate. It's true because there is a huge there's a reason why the epistles were written. And if I take it, if I don't have that at the back of my mind and I'm just reading it, I find them a bit heavy handed. The other day I was reading, I said I'm going to read Peter's. So I started reading Peter's. And I read the first chapter. And by the time I finished, I said, I don't even know what I've read. Because there were all these big words sanctification, justification, which, well, I know what some of them mean. But it's like a different language. So
Yes.
with that, I find it challenging to read the epistles, except
Mm.
I'm in the right frame of mind and I've conditioned myself with regards to maybe I've read a little bit about this, the reason why they wrote the letter, then I can follow. Whereas when it's Old Testament, most of the Old Testament is just stories. Like Genesis is
Yes.
just story. I know you will come across genealogy very soon, very quickly when you when you start, but even Exodus, Leviticus, they have names and things. They just it's an account of what happened, and I can follow
Mm-hmm.
that easily
Yes.
than even the Gospels. I still find them a bit challenging, you know.
Mm.
So if I would ask answer your question, I would say Old Testament,
Right.
and because I've also um, spent some time studying some of the prophets, I'm able to follow the prophets if I'm reading
Right.
them. And Psalms I also find challenging. You believe it or not, I don't like Proverbs because it's just one thing to another, one thing to another. It's and I didn't like poetry when I was in school.
Oh, right.
So Psalms are like that to me. You have to have that kind of inclination if you're reading, you're approaching it for the first time, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, it takes me a lot. You can't just I feel I can't just sit down and be reading it and expect a flow. I have to concentrate to get something
Yeah.
out of these books, unlike stories in the Old Testament. So if I would say what's my favorite or the easiest to read for me, it's the Old Testament. I know many people don't do that. So I'm challenging anybody that is listening to this that try it out. Go and start reading the Old Testament. You probably will find it easier to read
Mm.
than those other books of the Bible.
Yeah. Well, you saying that I have just finished. Well, I was really finding it hard going through Judges,
Okay.
and I mean, to remember the names,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
they're unusual names to us anyway, but just to remember them was just not happening with me.
Mm.
I was just so glad when I got to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they had some stories at the end,
Mm-hmm.
Samson
Mm-hmm.
and such like,
Mm-hmm.
but then we're on that lovely book of Ruth, and I thought, well, this is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then you you get past that, and of course then you carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Right. I
but
noticed
it's
somebody
just
else is watching now. So if you would like to just let us know who you are, maybe if you have any question But do you have a favorite part of the scriptures you're reading, like the question Georgina asked me? You can just type that in the chat. Or if you have any question for Georgina. Oh, hi Paula. It's Paula. Paula, good evening. So do you have a favorite book of the Bible? Georgina just asked me that question, Paula. I just finished. Ah, look. So you were reading, are you reading Mates with Georgina? She said she's just finished Judges. Georgina, Paula said she's just finished reading Judges.
All right. I will have to compare notes.
Yes, that would be nice, comparing notes. I don't know if I'm able to participate speaking wise. Oh no, not yet. I don't know if I sent the link to you. I didn't send the link. No. Let me see if I can share the link with her and she can, let's see, how do I share invite? Okay. Uh let me see. Wait in a minute, Paula, and I'm going to send the link to you and you try whether you can join in. Just bear with me a minute. I'm trying to send it to you on WhatsApp. All right, I think I found you.
It's all technology.
I know. All right, Paula. Oh, okay. She said she's listening in the car. All right, so
Right.
she may not be able to join in. That's okay. She says she's driving. All right. Okay.
Hopefully not.
So, now, the other thing you said about those reading help for people that are just trying to get in. I think most people, new believers, I don't know these days, but when I was younger as a Christian and people around me, I saw many people using it every day. You mentioned every day with Jesus. We have things like daily bread,
Oh yes, there's that as well.
small ones, and you're
Yes.
absolutely right that at least it will get you into getting familiar with the scriptures, and because they are usually small parts that you're reading, it's most
Yes.
likely that people will keep at it, and
Mm-hmm.
time they may graduate into seeing that, oh, I read this today, I actually want to know more. And that is good because it's actually breaking that barrier, which could be, oh, I think Paula is going to join in. Oh, hello, Paula.
I'm in
you
the
know
car.
Yeah, I see, but you can talk if you're hands free.
No, Paula.
I've,
Yeah.
I've just pulled over outside Co-op.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because anything at all that would encourage people to actually start engaging with the scriptures themselves, it's it's good. It's good
Yes.
because it's not only that it will help you to develop your relationship personally. It's also anchors us and make sure that we're not being tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
You said about wind of doctrine. When I was first a believer and I started reading Every Day with Jesus, I would not read the date that it said, because I thought if this is going to be teaching and they're teaching something wrong, everyone who's reading it that day will get the wrong teaching.
Yeah.
And I think that's come from when we've been in alternative things beforehand and
Mm-hmm.
knowing how people can hypnotize you through, not hypnotize you, but lead you down the wrong route. Sort of a bit like the fake news of nowadays, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
So,
mm,
yeah,
mm,
so I always used to buy it and then not read it for a month and then read it. So I
mm.
was not ever going along with the crowd.
Yeah. 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 Hmm. Anyway, so with regards to, let's say you're reading, do you have like a you allocated for yourself that when you're reading in the morning, it would be for 30 minutes or 25 minutes or something like that? Do you set that kind of time limit for yourself?
Uh, it depends. Sometimes it's about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if I haven't really, well, put it this way, if I was living on my own, I'd most probably stay in bed till about 10 o'clock with all my books around me and
All right.
but as I have a husband at home,
Mm-hmm.
we one tends to have to get up. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I try and do about half an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, like we said before, it's that consistency because
Yes.
um, some people may be listening to us or watching later and wondering this routine that we're talking about is how can I be there all the time? I don't think it's the question of spending an hour every day, but a little that you can do is good every time. And the longer it is, the most likely that if you're pressured for time, you won't do it. But if it's
That's right.
just if you give yourself the grace that if I can only do 7 minutes, 10 minutes today, that's fine.
Mm,
And I'll be able to find 7 minutes tomorrow morning. I'll be able to find 10 minutes on Friday or Saturday, things like that. And that would keep people more consistent,
mm.
and you know you get the long-term benefit of it. What about you, Paula? Do you have a time? Well, I've spoke to you before, and you said you don't have a time limit. Paula, I don't think he's hearing us anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Anyway.
I I find because I meet up with people sometimes for Bible study, and if I know what is being studied, I do try to
Mm-hmm.
actually look at those sections beforehand,
Mm, mm, mm,
and
yeah.
that actually is sometimes the harder bit to do because you're trying to fit it in. That would be definitely during the day that I'd be doing that.
Mm,
So,
mm, mm. All right.
but it's very
Yeah,
easy to be distracted.
true. I mentioned belonging to a Bible study group, which is on WhatsApp, and it's been going on for some time now. And because my friend that runs it, what she does is to allocate. So she will come up with a timetable that she will post and say that on this date, somebody reads, we all read in Psalm 1, but there will be
Yes.
somebody that is considered the anchor of the day. They will be the first person to post on WhatsApp what's the main taking, just anything that they understand or it appeals to them from that chapter. And afterwards, other people can then make contribution that or either agree or disagree with them. And I
Mm.
find that is also helpful for me because I tend to sit and want to carry on studying and looking and doing things. But if I can't do that, I can at least read a chapter a day. Even if I can't
Yes.
contribute, I will read what other people have, you know, written about that chapter, maybe at work when I'm free and things like that. And that's keeping me going.
Yes.
So you see, I talked about that because you mentioned the group that you belong to, and
Hmm.
that's part of fellowship.
Sorry.
I said that's part of fellowshipping with other believers
Yes.
because
Yes.
we're sharing with one another. And
Oh
so
yes.
that's another thing I feel people can take away, you know,
Mm. And
from this.
also, when you have a Bible study, you're sort of, you're getting other people's points of view, and they might, not so much points of view, but they might have seen something that you didn't see in the scriptures.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
light bulb moments, as I call them.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So
So it's not necessarily just reading it by ourselves. We need to engage with other people as well.
yes.
So I will be looking forward to hearing what you and Paula have to say about the judges.
I'm actually, I have, oh, I'll admit, I'm glad I finished reading them.
Mhm. Hmm.
Yes. So yeah, so on to something a little bit lighter.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so
uh,
I think we've been on for 40, more than 40 minutes now, and it's been
yes.
nice talking to you and getting your perspective on how your routine with regards to the to studying to reading the Bible, and how you go about it, some of the resources you use when you are reading, because we all get to a stage where there's something we want to check with somebody else. And I like the fact that you brought out the
Yeah.
fact that you're
Also,
also reading with
it's
people.
also a good thing to have either a pad, a writing pad or something, or even a diary. And if you feel that the Lord's speaking to you in with a verse or whatever, just to write it out and the
Mm,
date that you got it, so that you've got
mm,
something to look back to as well.
true. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, yeah. That's useful. Yeah,
Because it is,
that's
I
very
mean,
useful.
after all, it is a living word.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Anyway,
lastly, carry on.
no, I was just going to say, are we finished now?
I was going to
And then you
say,
said last.
yeah, I was going to say, do you have any last words you're going to say to people that probably watching us with regards to reading the Bible?
It's always worth praying first
Mhm.
and asking the Lord to illuminate.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
He'll take us at our word.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That is true.
yeah,
Okay.
but yes, all done with prayer.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I
Okay,
think we're done.
okay then.
Thank you
It's
for
been nice
coming.
talking to you, and
Yes.
nice talking to you.
Yeah, I'm thinking I may ask you to come again if I'm thinking maybe there's any particular thing I want to have a chat about, or because after I've spoken to you, I thought, oh, it would be nice sometimes to discuss maybe our understanding or perspective about a particular topic,
Oh right,
the
yes.
scriptures. So um, expect me to ask you again to have a conversation, but I'll tell you what it is. But it just occurred to me after I'd spoken to you about this, that oh, that's something else we can talk about. So, but I'll let you know.
Okay,
All right.
right here then.
So thank you so much. It's been nice chatting with you.
And it's been nice. Well, I think it's been quite nice. No,
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah.
lovely.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. So see you
God
then,
bless.
and you too. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.